Have you ever walked into a room and felt like something or someone was there with you? You believe in ghosts. Is there a way to investigate unexplained experiences? You are in the right place, for Indian River Hauntings presents Encounters with the Other Side. The ghost guy, Larry Lawson, is your host. With years of experience in law enforcement, he knows how to search for the truth. Stay right here as Larry and his guests from around the world discuss paranormal evidence and answer your questions about encounters with the other side.
And welcome back, everyone, to Encounters with the Other Side. I'm your host, Larry Lawson, otherwise known as the Ghost Guy. So I appreciate everybody being here today. I'm with the redoubtable, the one and only Chief Engineer here, Cliff Desmond. Say hi, Cliff.
Chief Engineer. Chief Engineer. Right. Okay. Yeah. Chief Engineer. Wow. Editor, director.
Chief Crooked Bottom.
Yeah, pretty much. But Greg, we go round and round over who gets to take the trash out.
Well, welcome back, everybody. It's going to be a great show today. Can't wait to introduce today's guests to you. I'm very excited about that. But first, I'd like to tell you how you can listen to the show. First of all, you can hear us at WPSL 1590 on your dial if you want to hear us live. If you can't hear the station, you like that, you can always catch us on the website, www.wpsl.com. and hit us live on the website. You can also hear us on the TuneIn app on your cell phones. Google Home and Alexa will also work. That's how you can hear us live. But if you missed the show, you can also hear us on YouTube. Yes.
Yes. Archives. Video archives.
Video archives. So you don't. Not only do you get to hear us, but you get to see us.
Ah.
And I think that's pretty fun. So check us out on YouTube if you missed the shows or you want to come back and relive our show a little bit. But WPSL, also known as Webcaster of the World, does send this signal out everywhere. So you can constantly hear us. I want to remind everybody this is a call-in show. So if you want to ask us some questions, give us your thoughts, your opinions, get a hold of us at 772-340-1590. That's 772-340-1590. If you'd like to be part of the show, I'll take a second to do my usual shout outs to friends and sponsors. Start off the show always by saying hi to Pete Anderson at Paranormal Brewery on Cleveland Street in Sebastian, place I consider to be the greatest brewery in the world. Cliff, you haven't been there yet, have you?
No, and I hear it's haunted too.
It is very haunted. We've had some really interesting investigations there. So you get to enjoy not only brews, but spirits.
That's right.
Yes.
But also, we let everybody know that, sometimes they don't arrive, but sometimes they do. And if you're there, you can actually go on a tour.
Yes, you can. We do tours in Sebastian, and that includes a discussion of what we found at the Paranormal Brewery, as well as all the historical aspects and the haunted aspects of Sebastian. And we do it on the beach in Vero, as well as downtown Vero. And we have events out in Fellsmere, one of the most haunted places in this part of Florida.
I rented a house one time because I was told it was haunted, and so I wanted it. But instead of finding anything, I kind of got to disprove everything that people were mistaking for ghosts. But that's part of being a ghost guy, right?
That's part of what we're about. Finding the truth, searching for the answers, regardless of where the evidence takes us. I want to say hello to Ike Enzi out there at IDK Paranormal in New Mexico. Ike's got a great show on YouTube, strongly recommended for those of you that are paranormal enthusiasts. Annabis Paranormal Research Organization, Chris George out there in Colorado, another follower of the show and great support of what we do. And last but not least, our friends Nikki and Sherry, part of the team of the Florida Bureau of Paranormal Investigation, but they also own Doodlebug Dowsing, the only place we get our dowsing rods from for our investigations, as well as our tours. If you missed the show or you want to find out more about us, you can also catch us on our websites, www.indianriverhauntings.com and paranormalfbi.com. You can catch us on Facebook, Indian River Hauntings, as well as Florida Bureau of Paranormal Investigation, and Instagram, if you follow Instagram. And we also have our YouTube channel, Indian River Hauntings, and we've got some pretty cool programming on there. So you've got plenty of ways to keep in touch with us. And I know you do, right, Cliff?
Oh yeah. When you first came here, I looked you up, and I watched one of your shows, and you've had that fellow on the program since again. So I saw him on your site, and then we can still watch him on ours too. And you can also share the YouTube videos with friends. Other websites, you can actually put them on your website, Facebook, things like that. But you have to produce your own YouTube content.
Right.
So, I mean, we'd love to be able to like take your show and put it on ours, but we can't do that. We can't do stuff like that.
Yeah. Well,
that's all right though.
Well, I tell you what, I'm really, really excited about the show today because I've had folks from all over the world. We've had folks from England, Australia, Canada on the show. But today I've got members of what I consider to be, personally, this is my opinion, the greatest paranormal team in the world. The guys that make the Florida Bureau of Paranormal Investigation happen, members of my team, and it doesn't happen without them. And I've got two in the studio, one joining us via Zoom. I've got, first of all, Michael Spanky Maxwell.
Hello.
And then I have Crystal Shriver. Say hi, Crystal.
Hey.
And then on YouTube, I've got Candice Dradeck.
Hey, guys.
Just keeping in kind of our public safety mode here, Spanky, retired firefighter. Candice, her family are all law enforcement. And Crystal here is involved in the legal community herself. So we've got all kinds of folks in the world of public safety with us. So welcome to the show, guys.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thanks,
Larry.
Very excited to have you here today because we've talked to folks all over the world about things that they do, things that are happening with them. And since this may be the last time we'll be on for a little bit, I thought the world needed to hear from you guys, the ones that make the Florida Bureau of Paranormal Investigation work. And I consider you the greatest bunch of folks in the business out there. So know a little bit more about you. So Spanky, and we like to call him Spanky. He can tell you the story of why if he wants. Tell us a little bit about yourself, Spanky.
Okay, I'm a retired firefighter and grandpa right now. That's my full-time job. And I've been, I was in the St. Lucie County Fire District for 32 years. I retired in 2014. And what brought me into the paranormal was my wife brought me to a dinner and ghost hunt with Larry Lawson and his group. And that got me started. And from there, we just got more and more involved. And now I try to be Larry's right-hand man.
Yep.
Even though he's a policeman, you know, us cops and firemen, you know, we try to work together.
First responders.
Yeah, that's right. We're first responders. But
in the realm.
Yeah.
As well.
But so yeah, Spanky is the lead investigator for the team. He's the one that organizes the field operations for us when we're conducting an investigation. So I appreciate his expertise. And Crystal, we've got a caller, and we'll be with you in just a second, caller. But I want to introduce Crystal.
My name's Crystal. I'm a paralegal. I'm also a wife and mom. I actually went to some tours and a dinner and a ghost hunt. And I just kept showing up, so.
Yeah, I kind of had to take you on because you
they added me because of that, yeah.
Crystal's an important part of our show. And then finally, Candice. Candice, say hi to everybody. Introduce yourself.
Can you hear me?
We can hear you fine.
Okay, cool.
Very nice.
So, hey guys, my name is Candice. I'm currently an insurance agent up in Vero Beach. I actually have been involved in the paranormal since 1998 when my grandfather passed away, and he actually came to me before my family did. So that was my first experience with all of that. And then I've had something following me around since I was about 9. So I constantly have a spirit in my presence. But I actually got involved with the FBPI back in 2017 when I also attended a dinner and a ghost hunt. And Larry liked my email address, which is Got Ghosts. And that kind of started everything from there.
Yeah. And of course, we've got about another Tom and Jill and Tina and Sherry and Nikki, I forget who else am I forgetting here? My sons, Evan and Ryan. I got to say hi to them. All part of this team. That I mean, they're the greatest bunch of guys in the world. And we've got Jerry on line one. So, Jerry, you still with us?
Thank you for taking my call. I was wondering. I got down here. I was still in my 20s, and when I went back into the service, I was stationed down here very briefly. Well, I got down here in my 20s, and after I got my electrical license, I spent 4 years going to night school to get an electrical license. And then after that, I took a ancient civilizations course at the local college. And the first day of class, none of us had met the instructor yet, the professor. And so while we were waiting for him, none of us had ever seen him. For some reason, I just started writing down Argentina over and over again. And in the middle of the class, he said his name was Manette, and he wanted to know if anybody could guess what nationality it was. Nobody was guessing French because his name was Manette. And it turns out that he was from Argentina. And so I wondered if a lot of times people get a paranormal experience mixed up with telepathy or ESP. I don't know if they mean the same thing, telepathy or ESP, but I was really surprised when it happened because I couldn't figure out why I kept writing this down at the beginning of the class, Argentina over and over again. And I'd like to listen off air. That'd be okay?
Well, and a lot of people do combine the world of the telepathy and ESP all into the paranormal because so much of it has to do with the way the human mind processes information. I don't know if anybody else have a comment on that one?
No, it all goes together, I believe, Larry, like you're saying.
Mm-hmm. It's very very complicated, and it's one of those mysteries, Jerry, that we are continuing to try and unravel. So thank you very much for calling.
Okay, thank you for taking my call.
My pleasure, my friend. Thanks for calling in. So we've all, I've had a chance to introduce everybody to the audience out there. And I know that like Crystal and all of you came to the team as a part of just events that we were doing. But did you have any events yourselves as you were growing up? I know, Candice, you talked about having something following you around. I was going to ask if it was Paul, but that's way too before that. I'm just joking there. But did you have something happen that actually caught your interest, that got you interested in the paranormal? And Crystal, you want to start first?
Yeah, so I was always interested in it, but I was very, very skeptical. It wasn't until I had my first experience, I was about 18, I went to Gettysburg, Pennsylvania for the first time. Mm-hmm. And I went to the Dobbin House. I don't know if you're familiar with that. It was a part of the Underground Railroad. And I saw a apparition, a face of a little girl, and I could not explain it. And it just stuck out to me. And after thinking about it and going over it in my head, I came to the conclusion that there might really be something else out there.
Something else on the other side,
yes,
if you will.
Yeah.
And it's hard because you have things that happen. Intelligent, educated people, well-balanced people have things happen. You just can't dismiss it. So, go ahead, Spank. How about you?
I really haven't had anything in my early years, mm-hmm. and I'm now in my 50s, and it really didn't start until I started investigating. Mm-hmm. Let me put it that way. I've seen a lot of tragedy over the years in the professions we've been in, and nothing. I've never had like aberrations or anything talking to me or seen anything, and it really didn't happen until I started investigating with the team.
Anything in particular that stands out to you that's happened to you since you began investigating?
There's been a few times. Probably the scariest moment for me was when we were in New York, and mm-hmm. we were doing couple of different places in a week. And we were at a hotel and we had something, and then we went to another venue, and it seemed like that I had an attachment to me for a short time because I was getting headaches and things of that nature. That's probably the only scariest time I've had. Other than that, I'm more of a skeptic and try to debunk a lot of things. So, but there's a lot of things that I've had here in these last 5-6 years that I can't explain.
Yeah, and you happen to be an expert on those dowsing rods, I might add.
Well, thank you.
Yeah,
thank you.
And the thing with the dowsing rods, folks, is it's the same type of thing that folks would use to find water, but we use them in our investigations, and we get some of the most amazing answers. But the best part about it is when we can corroborate those answers either with our other piece of equipment or historical research. So it's pretty. We just had a couple of those recently, haven't we?
Yes, yes. It's very self-satisfying when you're doing the dowsing rods and there's other equipment or other information that confirms what you are getting.
Yeah, yeah, and once again, how do you explain that? How about you, Candice? I know you said you had an attachment or something following you, but share with us your first experience.
So my first experience was my grandfather. We were very close, and I was 9 when he passed away. And we had gone to the hospital the night before. And when we left, I said, okay, I'll see you tomorrow. And he ended up passing that night. And this was back in New York. So he lived in Brooklyn and I was in Long Island. So we had some distance between us. And the next morning, my parents came in to tell me what had happened. And I was already up and getting dressed. And I said, I know, Poppy told me. So he came to me before anybody else did. And even at 9 years old, that sparked almost an obsession with learning more about it and finding more about it, because it didn't scare me. It piqued my interest. And then from there, it became, doing the research. And like Crystal, I went to Gettysburg, but Gettysburg became like a second home to me. So, I mean, I've had countless experiences there. I have had entities follow me home from paranormal locations, and it's just been a very long history with the paranormal, and it's probably my biggest passion in life.
Have you ever had something that, just shook you to your core, scared you to death, concerned you?
That was the, I don't know if it was an attachment, but I went to Pennhurst State School, and it was semi-active while we were there. Nothing really crazy happened, but a female entity actually followed me home, and she would bang on my walls at night. When I was like in between the sleep and waking stage, I could actually feel her leaning over my bed watching me while I was sleeping. And she stayed for about a week, and then she left. But that was the scariest thing I've ever experienced, and I hope that doesn't happen again.
Well, now, two of you have spoken of attachments. Would one of you like to kind of explain what that means to folks that aren't in the field? Go ahead, Candice. He passed it off to you.
All right. So basically, it's if a spirit either connects with you in a certain way, or they find something familiar with you, they might, in my opinion, they might follow you from where they are. So it's not necessarily true that a spirit is bound to where they are. Certain entities are able to move from location to location, and I think it's all the energy thing. I think if there's some kind of connection, some kind of familiarity, they're not more likely, but they're more capable of going, hey, I like this person, I'm going to go with them.
Yeah. And I think our investigations have pretty well proven that these are, whatever it is not cemented to that location. They do move around quite a bit. I remember one famous story out of Gettysburg. A guy was a reenactor, and he was leaving the field after I won't say a performance, but the activities of his unit. And he looked in the back pickup of his pickup truck, and there was another reenactor in the bed of his pickup truck, just sort of with his head down, and suddenly he was gone. And it's a pretty well-known story out of Gettysburg, so that happens quite a bit. Crystal, have you had anything like that happen to you?
Yeah, so the last apartment I lived in, I don't know if there was something there or attached to me, but for several months, it would wake myself and my son up in the middle of the night. We would see shadow figures, like it was banging, couldn't explain why, on the sides of the wall where we didn't have neighbors, and just a lot of crazy stuff happened. Yeah.
Go ahead, Spanky, what were you going to say?
For the audience out there, we don't try to have these unknown entities follow us or attach to us.
Nor do we try to conjure them up. We just talk to who's there.
No, but it happens. And for me, it was, I don't know if it was because of lack of sleep during that time, because we were doing a lot of traveling, and my energy was down. He was able to attach to me and go from one place to another with us. I've tried to think about it, but when that happened, I had the most awful headache when we were doing our investigations.
Now, for the skeptics out there, Spanky, I can hear somebody out there saying, well, of course you were thinking something was wrong. You just said you were tired and you were worn out. What makes a difference? What made the difference between you just being overly tired and you thinking something may be attached to you?
Because during that time, we were doing the investigations and the information we were getting at those events. And then when we went to a different event, I had the same material coming out. And I'm like, how can this person be at this place and be at this place when he should have stayed at the last place, which was 600 miles away?
Yep. Now, we as a team try to avoid problems like this. Would one of you like to explain how we do that?
Why don't you go ahead?
Okay, I'll go ahead. What we try and do is we say a little prayer of protection prior to and at the end of it. And we've had a lot of luck. We haven't had any problems yet, but we just basically tell what's ever there, they are not allowed to come home with us. Folks got to understand that when you conduct this type of inquiry, they forget that they have dominion over their own lives. And when you tell something they can't, or if you do the opposite, you give even the slightest indication they have permission, you can get yourself jammed up. So far, we've been pretty fortunate with that, though. And that's how we do it, with prayers beginning and ending. Yes, Cliff?
I think we were created with a certain breath about us that causes them to be at basically our command. We can tell them to go away, and they have to. They leave.
And it does happen. Here's the kicker, though. And I think all of you will agree with me. At this point, as we investigate and we research, it's still all theory, isn't it? It's all theory. So we really don't know what the other side is yet. So what do you think this is? What are we investigating? What are your guys' opinions or philosophies or theories of what it is we're running into out there?
I'm still trying to figure it out, Larry. Everybody knows there's something, because to hear noises, to hear voices,
and we've heard that, haven't we?
We've heard plenty of voices. To get answers when we do different technology, and the special people out there that are mediums and such, that are able to pick up on the other side. But for us to be able to prove it, I think is going to still take a while.
People have been trying to prove it for centuries, haven't they?
Yes.
Okay. Candice, you got any thoughts on that? Your theory as to what it is we're dealing with?
I do believe that it's an extension of a living person who was around at some point. Whether you call it a spirit, a ghost, an entity. I know certain people have certain beliefs about the terminology that they use. I think that a lot of it is, again, I always go back to the energy. It could be the building. There are certain forms of like construction materials and rocks that actually absorb energy. Water is a conductor. So I think it all just happens to be, if there is a spirit lingering, you got to be in the right place at the right time for something to happen. You know, just because a location is purported to be haunted doesn't mean you're going to get something happening all the time.
Well said.
Because it's like walking into somebody's house. You know, if you walk into a stranger's house and you're like, hey, talk to me right now, most of the time they're not going to talk to you. You got to kind of create a relationship before you can just go in and start asking stuff. So
and I think
it's all energy for me.
And I think that what you said is I totally agree with. If you are of the mindset that what we're dealing with are extensions of a person that has passed, their energy, however you want to describe it, then they probably retain that personality, and therefore they're not circus animals that are designed to come out at your demand, command, or request. They'll come out and chat and interact with you when and if they feel like it. And I think that's a lot of things, and that's one thing we try to do with our team, is try to be very respectful in how we conduct these inquiries as we collect our evidence. So I think that's well said, Candice. Crystal, any thoughts from you?
Yeah, I kind of feel I'm in between Candice and Spanky. I'm still very skeptical about a lot of things, but there's just so much unexplained phenomena that we've experienced that the possibility is very much there that it's a spirit or someone who's passed on.
And that seems to be the most common thing, is that it's that energy, that spirit of those that have passed on. But I've got to mention, too, there's other theories out there, such as different dimensions, as indicated by Einstein in his general theory of relativity. There's the famous Philip experiment out of Toronto in the 1970s, where they created an individual and then got evidence that they existed, but they made him up. So is it our own mind creating some of it? So those are some of the things that the FBPI is trying to unravel as we head down this road. Go ahead, Spanky.
And I think one of the other things is how these spirits, we always, people go to graveyards a lot and think, okay, it's going to be haunted, there's going to be a lot of people there, but why would they be there and not somewhere they love, like their home or around their family, or attached to an object, which could be bought by somebody and moved to another facility?
Physical attachments, yep.
And we've seen a lot of that.
We have, especially at the Fellsmere School, where we have actually interacted, and Cliff, you might find this interesting, we've actually interacted with kids. Yet there is not one written word in history of a tragedy at that school. Nobody's died there, no accidents have occurred, yet the school has had numerous contacts with children. So why is that happening? The theory being is sometimes folks just go back to where they were happiest.
Yeah, I was thinking something along those lines, because I think often about the little grade school I went to first through fourth grade up in Massachusetts. I'd love to go up there just kind of to hang out, and I'll bet you for the same reason that maybe from beyond they'll do the same thing, because they loved their school at the time, and some of their fondest memories were probably right there.
And it does go along with a theory that spirits are not necessarily bound to one spot. People get the misconception a tragedy happened here, so that's where something like this is bound. Well, that's really, really, not accurate at all.
That's Hollywood.
Yeah, that's Hollywood. They move around quite a bit. So, just one of those many things that we're investigating. Yes, go ahead.
Unless you're talking about like our wars that we've had, like Gettysburg and places like that, possibly over in Vietnam or World War II over in Germany, their battlefields may be because that was such a tragedy.
Well, Chris Huff, that we all know, Chris is a medium in England, and he's an expert on haunted Royal Air Force airfields in England, and he has amassed all kinds of information of airmen, both American and English, as well as other European nations, on those airfields that have died that will still pop up. So once again, one of the many questions that we have not yet answered, why do some stay, why do some travel? We just don't know that yet. But it's nonetheless interesting. Candice, any thoughts?
As far as traveling goes?
Yeah.
I don't believe that all entities are bound, like you said. I do think that some might just be curious, like, hey, look at this person, I'm going to see where they go next. Whatever whatever it was that followed me home from Penhurst, she was not nice. But where I got rid of her was when I flew to Hawaii a week later. She just disappeared. So, you know, it could be like, you know,
maybe she gets airsick. I don't know. I'm sorry.
In like Disney's Haunted Mansion, the hitchhiking ghost. You don't know. You know, they if somebody was a traveler in life, maybe they're a traveler in death, and they just want to see the world. Who knows?
Well, there's a lot of theory out there too that if these are spirits, those that have gone before us, they retain those types of personalities they had in life. Now, here's a question for you guys. Get your thoughts on this. Sometimes they don't realize they've passed. I think of some of the young airmen that Chris has encountered in England, where their aircraft has gone down. They go back and they just return to their base, and they haven't realized yet that they're not supposed to be there. What are your thoughts on that? That sometimes they don't realize they've crossed over.
Yeah, and we had one of those here lately, Larry, up in Sebastian.
Yes, we have.
It was a little girl, and she doesn't know that she had passed. And we don't come out and ask them. We try to find out the period that they lived instead of when did you die.
Yes. Yeah.
And through our questioning, we found out that she didn't know. She was not still with us.
Yeah. That was that, and that's an ongoing case that we're very interested in, because we're trying hard to piece together. This is one of those really interesting things, and I don't want to get into too much detail because we're still investigating it, but this is one of those times where we got information both with Chris joining us on Skype from England, Spanky and Sherry on dowsing rods. We were using what we call a spirit box, which is going through radio frequencies. All those three things were giving us the same answers, and then we found the grave of the child, which is pretty spectacular. So we're trying to piece all that together right now, but those are some of the interesting things that we do run up against. So trying to figure out what happened on that case, and that one's an old one. We actually might be onto something there, because a lot of the stuff we got we've been able to confirm with historical research. Yeah. So we're pretty excited about that.
Well, finding the grave site is a major breakthrough.
Well, nobody knew it was there, and it was by accident, but we did find the grave site and of a young child that died of unknown circumstances, but they were tragic, but nobody knows quite what happened. And it's a very small, almost completely unmarked grave. So it's pretty exciting stuff, and that's kind of what keeps us going. That's kind of what keeps the adrenaline going.
And going back to that, Larry, why wouldn't she be at the graveyard and not at that house?
That's a good point. Yeah. Because she doesn't realize she's supposed to be at the graveyard. Yeah, a lot of I'm not a big graveyard guy myself for lots of different reasons, but that's one of them. Were you going to say something, Crystal? No? Okay. How about you, Candice? Any thoughts on this one?
In regards to, spirits maybe not realizing that they have passed, I always go back to Gettysburg. That's always my go-to. When you have a situation where it is a mass loss and it's abrupt and unexpected, it's kind of like the energy, the body might stop, but the energy keeps going. And it's just like, if you're there with all your comrades and everything's happening to everybody, it's kind of like everyone's in the same situation. So if that guy's still going, well, then I got to keep going. And, they might not realize that, hey, something stopped here and it just continues. So I think it's all a matter of circumstance and the situation as well.
And certainly when you've got mass tragedy and the stories out of Gettysburg are like, just for generations they've been coming out of there. Now, so here's another question I'll toss out to you folks. Sentient, non-sentient, intelligent residual haunts. Sentient being intelligent, non-sentient being residual. Spirits that just sort of happen. They are seen by numerous people. The one that comes to my mind is the lady in white in Fellsmere that they've seen. She just walks from one wall to the next. She doesn't interact with anybody. You can't say anything to get her to respond to you. It's just almost like a videotape's playing on a loop, and it just shows up, and it's the same thing as compared to something that answers you or interacts with you. Thoughts between the differences there, guys? And I'll toss this out to you also. Is a residual or non-sentient spirit or sighting, is that actually a ghost, or is it just trapped energy? Or is that the same? Oh man, all these questions. What do you guys think? Anybody? Come on.
I want to go with it's trapped energy, where it's repeating over and over and over. I think it's just something that happened there, and for some reason that energy is stuck at that one location and just repeats itself.
What if it just can't? It's actually sentient. It's intelligent in its thinking. It just can't hear you because it's stuck in a spot. Is that possible?
Anything's possible.
In this business, you're darn right.
Anything's possible.
Crystal, your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, especially I think when something, in my opinion, something tragic happens, it's just like the energy is just kind of stuck there. Especially when you talk about a place like Gettysburg, where it's just like mass burials, and you know they're still finding people in the ground everywhere, and yeah.
Miss Candice?
I think the residual hauntings basically is like replaying a tape. You know, you can go to that spot at the right time and, you know, the right place, and
right
it's
circumstances.
just going to repeat itself. Yeah, like, you know, you get some people where they're like, oh, if you go to this place at this time, you know, with the moon phase like this, you'll see this, you know, sad woman walking the graveyard looking for her lost child or something like that. You know, it's like Spanky said, it's the trapped energy as far as the residual stuff goes. But I like your question about, you know, is it intelligent, but it's trapped, and we don't know. And that's the thing about this, is you don't know. There's so many questions that spark other questions, and it's like.
And I think that's what bothers me, when folks automatically dismiss everything. Just can't be. No, God, it's in your mind. Oh, it couldn't be, because we just don't know yet. Now, part of this sentient residual type of haunts, a lot of times it has to do with the material that's in the area too, whether it be wood, water, granite, things like that could have an effect on it. But here's my question to you then. Does that fit the traditional definition of what we call a ghost or an apparition? Because it's just running over. As compared to Billy in the old school that answered us one night with do you like to be here? Thank you, Mark Holt, for doing that. Do you like to be here? And we clearly got the answer on our recorders. Yes, sir. A little boy's voice. That's an answer. That's an intelligent answer.
And just to bring us back to the beginning of the show, thank you, Mark and Val, for being on the team.
Yes.
I think we forgot.
Yes,
y'all.
we do. Oh my gosh, that's why I asked you, Spanky.
Yeah.
Mark and Val Holt, and they're tremendous members of the team. Thanks for bringing that up. Whoa, that's embarrassing. But go ahead. So getting back to it, is a residual haunt actually a ghost in the traditional terms, or is it just energy that just keeps playing back?
For me personally, I don't believe it's a ghost. I think it's more like, for simple fact, a video that's going over and over. It's not trying to haunt. It's not trying to communicate. So to me, it's not a spirit.
Okay.
It would be like a shadow that's on a wall that cannot move. It's there forever.
Okay.
So to me, no.
So you personally see a difference between the two?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Anybody else want to opinionize on that?
I feel like it could be like a ghost of a ghost, if that makes any sense.
Interesting.
You know, like a memory, because if it's repeating over and over again, could be a bad memory, could be a good memory, but it's not necessarily the essence of the person, like the spirits that we try to communicate with, but it is still some form of that person who was there at some point. So yes, like Spanky said, it's there, it's not going anywhere, but it's still some kind of a relation to the spirit, the person that it once was, in my opinion.
Okay. Interesting. Ghost of a ghost. That's an interesting.
Let me throw this one out there then to you, Candice. Could it be that the spirit has moved on and that was left behind?
I think that's a good theory.
Any mediums out there that would care to opine? I got to ask Chris about that one. That's an interesting topic too.
Yeah, I like that idea.
Yeah, Crystal, any thoughts yourself, Miss Crystal?
Yeah, I don't know if I would consider it a spirit.
Okay.
Just because it's stuck in a loop. But like I said, I don't really know.
That's the
It's
kicker.
just,
Nobody
yeah,
really knows,
we don't
right?
know.
Yeah, and now that's interesting, and to let the folks out in the audience know, that's probably one of the more interesting and controversial discussions we have within the field, ranking right up there with, do our orbs really are they dust or are they spirits? So, but it is a topic, and I also want, before you go, Spanky, I also want to mention that's one reason why we as a team look at things such as moon phase, weather conditions, barometric pressure, humidity, all putting that together to find out if we have events that happen that occur when those things are similar. That kind of gives us a data point.
Mercury retrogrades.
Yeah, exactly.
And time of the year.
Time of the year.
And the structures that we're in. What they're made of and how they're made and the area that we're in.
Yeah.
From New York to West Virginia to Florida,
Mm-hmm.
we've been in different types of situations.
That's true, and a lot of people don't realize too. They tend to look at a structure and say that building's got to be haunted, or they get a building. This house can't be haunted. I built it. Nobody's ever died here before. How could it be haunted? The answer is the land. And we oftentimes forget that it's oftentimes the land that's affected, not the structure. The structure just happens to be at the right spot at the right time.
There's a little bit of a similarity, a parallel with technical difficulties that occur with digital audio.
Okay.
And what happens is it loops like a little blurb or a burp or something, and it'll keep doing it. It'll repeat itself. I wonder if there's anything like that in the spiritual realm where trapped energy would loop.
That's a good point. And once again, if you look back at some of the writings and philosophies of Nikola Tesla,
Yes.
Edison, Rodive, Jorgensen, all dealing with what we call instrumental transcommunication, radio waves, light spectrums, things like that. They felt there was a connection there, so that would connect with the electronics. So that's,
we got to be careful of stuff that makes sense, because none of it seems to make sense until you start sensationalizing it.
All right, guys. Well, so we talk about all these philosophical things and things that we do and why we're involved in this search. Let's talk about some of the equipment we like to use. And we've all got our preferences. We've all got our dislikes or things we would rather not use. So I'm going to start with Candice this time. Do you have a piece of equipment that you like to use that you feel is fairly successful in gathering evidence, and why do you like it?
So I feel like I have a specialty in the EVP area, which is electronic voice phenomena.
Mm-hmm.
It's basically spirit voices captured on tape or on digital audio. So I've always had a lot of success with that. You know, even if you're in a place and it seems super quiet, you can still be talking to somebody and not even realize it until you go back to review it later. So I did start out with regular tape cassettes. And since then, you know, we've graduated to the digital recorders, and some people even use their phones for it. I've gotten some really amazing audio from Gettysburg and from Pennhurst and Waverly Hills Sanatorium in Kentucky. I mean, it's my favorite way to try to communicate it. It's not real time. You can't hear it while it's happening, but when you go back later and you're like, wow, I really was in the presence of something. I think that's the most exciting thing. So I actually, for Christmas, got a tape recorder, so you can use the tapes in the recorder and convert them to MP3s, so that you can use the old school way of recording audio and convert them to where we can still review them and listen to them on a computer. So I'm really excited to try that.
And to just give folks a kind of a very simple idea of how this works. How do you not hear it, but it shows up on a recorder? And it all goes back to the theory of frequency and vibration, that somehow the other side is able to tap into a certain frequency and vibration that we can't hear, but it comes out on the tape. And the easiest way that I like to describe it is a dog whistle. You blow a dog whistle, and we can't hear it, but the dogs can. Frequency and vibration. So that's just kind of a very basic way of talking about these EVPs and why they occur. I will disagree with you on one thing, though, Ken. It's just personal opinion. I think we can get it in real time, and that's one reason why we try to do our EVP sessions and stop it after every minute or two, so we can listen, see if anybody's actually answered us. And
the live playback.
Yeah. So I mean, but both sides work there. Miss Crystal, what do you like to use?
I like using the dowsing rods.
Okay.
I also like the REM pod. I don't know if people know what that is.
Well, why don't you tell us what the REM pod is?
So a REM pod is this little box that you sit down, and it has lights and sounds on it. And something has to come right up to it and touch it for it to go off.
And it's kind of like what happens is there's a bubble of electromagnetic energy that is around the antenna. Unlike a K2 meter that detects electromagnetic fields, and that like if we hold an EMF detector up against your keyboard there, Cliff, we're going to get a reaction. But the REM pod that Crystal's talking about puts out a bubble around the antenna. Something has to break the bubble to make it go off. And that's kind of like almost the opposite of that. And I agree,
Yeah.
that's pretty cool.
Yeah, I like that piece of equipment a lot.
Okay. Michael, a.k.a. Spanky.
I'm going to surprise you today, Larry. The tool that I like to use is something that you're usually handling. The SLS camera.
Yeah.
It's not the greatest
Structured light sensor, yep.
Yeah, it's not the greatest technology right now, but when we have used it, we've had some very interesting things happen.
Yeah, we have. Going to share a couple of those with us. And what that is, folks, is it's like a what's the game?
Xbox.
Xbox.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Xbox. And you'd play it like you're playing tennis on the TV.
And it will show you stick figures.
Stick figures, right.
And what happens is, with that technology, we're able to map out supposedly the spirits out in the field.
Anomaly, yep.
And when that has happened, I've also done it with the dowsing rods to find out the location of them. And then you would point your SLS camera there, and sure enough, a stick figure would come up.
The one that strikes my mind now, and I didn't even think about this till you mentioned it, was in the basement of the old school in Fellsmere, where you had the rods. They were pointing to a spot next to a counter, and you asked me to point the SLS camera in it, and there was a stick figure sitting there, and it was kicking. We had a ball on the floor, and the thing was kicking at the ball, trying to get it to move, and we got it on the SLS camera, and he detected on the
with the dowsing rods.
Yeah,
and we've also had that happen at a couple other locations. For instance, Mel Fisher.
Yes.
You
Mel Fisher Museum. Yeah.
And we had it at a private residence where you said, Spanky, put out your hand, and I put my hand out, and all of a sudden it was cool. Like air conditioning was blowing right just at my hand, and then he goes, "It's grabbing for your hand right now."
The stick figure would grab the hand. Yeah, we've had that happen several times. Wow.
And that's why that's one of those pieces of equipment that, when it works and works with other equipment, like for instance the dowsing rods, or you're getting something over the ghost box, actually communicating with us. It brings to light this equipment is working.
Yeah,
and we are detecting something there.
Yeah, and I agree. The SLS camera needs a little bit more refining in its technology for this use, because if you point it at, for example, a coat rack, it'll start to map out like a figure, but it's very herky-jerky, and you've got to learn that when it's doing that, it's not a figure, it's just trying to figure out what that coat rack is. Whereas the other times, and we've seen it, where the stick figure will just be standing there, and we ask it to wave, and it'll wave, and that's happened dozens of times, grabs your hand. So yeah, I like that. I'll tell you what, I'm going to throw mine in here too.
Okay.
I am as sensitive as a rock, ladies and gentlemen. I'm going to tell you right now. I am.
We agree.
I am not sensitive to this stuff at all. So dowsing rods don't work well for me, but I've seen the most amazing things happen with dowsing rods that have been corroborated by other pieces of equipment. And my favorite other piece of equipment there is the spirit box, which is running through radio frequencies. I'm a big believer that instrumental transcommunication, of which EVPs are a part of, if there's going to be a breakthrough, that's going to be where it's at. But what we'll do is we'll sit in one room, and somebody will be on the spirit box in another room with a pair of noise-canceling earphones on. They can't hear the questions asking. And we'll ask questions, and that person in the other room will just shout out what they hear over the box. And some of the information that we've gotten out of that are the answers to questions, direct answers to questions that were we've been able to confirm historically, or are just amazing. Oh, we're that late already, Cliff? Oh my gosh! I told you guys this would go
Time
fast.
flies when you're having fun.
Yes. So, wow, so many more questions to ask. We got about 4 minutes, guys. Any parting words, thoughts on the team, the field, where you think your future might go? This time we're going to start with Crystal. Put you on the spot, girl. Any parting words?
I love being a part of our team. I think we, like you said, we have a really good team.
Oh, we've been together for a while.
We do, yeah. And I'm just, always waiting to go to the next place to see what we can get, what we can prove, disprove, that sort of thing. Just keeping an open mind about it.
Open mind, that's what it's all about. Spanky, your turn.
I have a question for you, Larry.
Uh-oh.
Being in this field, and you said your sons brought you into this field.
Well, no.
Kind of.
Yeah.
I mean, to actually pursue it.
Right.
One thing that I've been thinking about here lately is we're older people now. We're getting up in our age.
You might be old. I'm not.
Yeah. Okay. Well, some of our members are.
Somebody told me I was in denial, and I said, no, I'm not.
Are older people getting into this field because of wanting to know where they go?
I think that's a big part of it. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's a good.
What happens when we leave this land?
Yeah.
And for me, that is one of the things that I think about when I got into this. But we do have a great group, and I love to investigate with them, and hopefully we can keep doing this a number of more years.
Candice, we got about 2 minutes. You got any parting words before we?
I'll make it real quick. So when I moved down here from New York 4 years ago, I did not think that I would be able to get involved not only with a group, but to be able to still do the paranormal investigating. So I am extremely grateful that I met you, Larry, and that I am part of the team, because I absolutely love working with you guys.
Well,
so,
we're glad you're here.
you.
Thanks, Tyson. Thanks, everybody else out there that's listening. We'll be back. We're going to be taking a break for a little bit. Hopefully we'll be back if the fates allow us. But we've really enjoyed being here. And I want to thank everybody for listening. I want to thank my guests today and all the guests we've had on over the last 13, 14 weeks. But most importantly, want you all to remember to take care of yourselves, love your family, hug your kids, be careful out there, and until we meet again, we'll see you on the other side.
Family activity.
Tune in to YouTube for archives of this show, Encounters with the Other Side, with the Ghost Guy, Larry Lawson, and the guests he's had on this show. And I have a feeling that one of these days he'll be back with us yet again. And remember,
thank you for joining us for Indian River Hauntings presents Encounters with the Other Side. If you'd like to join Larry for a ghost tour or one of his events, check the Indian River Hauntings website for Treasure Coast locations, and be sure to follow on Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube. Until next time.
This is WPSL Port St. Lucie, the talk of the Treasure Coast.